The ultimate glory belongs to those who don't quit.
Eugene, the youngest producer to have a show on Kenyan TV. Did you always know that you're going to end up in the TV space?
So I actually did not. I just took all the opportunities I got. If you're swimming in the ocean, it doesn't matter how deep it is, you just have to keep swimming.
How important is it to invest in ourselves?
Being very intentional about giving value before you ask for it. People will support you if they know your process. Life is defined by stories. You never grow unless you put yourself out of your comfort zone. That you must understand that when you go into business, it's like going into war every day. There's a right way to fail. It's quickly, cheaply, and never the same way twice. And I think once you make peace with the fact that there will be good times and bad times, and when the bad times come, don't break. I think that's sort of like a nice balance to sort of understand. If you master what you're doing, money usually follows. So the only thing you can really control is your input.
Classmates, CEOs, Mkofiti, welcome to yet another lecture. Our guest today, our lecturer for today, is an amazing gentleman who inspires me and challenges me every single day. We're in the same industry, but what he's been able to achieve, he's much younger than me. Na kuanga tu nikijiuliza, kwani sijui kile nafanya kwa hii life? I mean, he probably was the youngest producer to have a show on Kenyan TV. And I'm excited to have this conversation. He's a gentleman I always look forward to our conversations because he really, really does genuinely challenge my mindset. We're still filming at Longonot Place. Come check them out. Book your staycation. Waambie wakupatie discount ya field director. Awesome. Eugene, kofiti man?
Niko salama kabisa, feel kwaje?
Mimi niko poa. Good to see you.
Good to see you.
Bro, first of all, kuna time ushainipea scare. Kuna time niliona umego bald on social media. Niko jo, umebarikiwa na nywele fiti na dread and then you're going bald. What was that about?
I think I was helping an artist, a friend of mine, promote some music.
Right.
But watu wengi mliniingililia mpaka nikogopa kushave. Ilikuwa test.
Unajua sisi unajua na hii hairline tuna wish tungekuwa tuna hairline yako na nywele yako. Tungekuwa na locks. Good to see you, man.
Good to see you, man.
Thank you so much for coming through, man. And I'm so excited about this conversation. Whenever you and I meet, by the way, we just talk about business, work, business.
Trying to crack our industry.
Uja quit. Una quit lini?
Nilikuwa mkulima. You're not getting rid of me that fast.
So for you, film has to work.
You know, it's when you pick a path, and I think it's true for any industry, you'll face challenges.
Right.
But I think the ultimate glory belongs to those who don't quit.
Okay.
You push it mpaka you work.
That is true.
Yeah.
That is true. I think for me, it's because I genuinely don't know how to do anything else.
So
na quit tunaenda wapi. So we have to make it work. And I'm loving the convos that we're having. A lot of businesses are being affected. And as filmmakers, manze, kama kuna watu wamepata the wrath ni sisi.
Yeah.
And that's a question now I'm constantly asking on this platform. What's the future of work looking like? What's the future for us as a film industry?
I think it's a very difficult question to answer now.
Yeah.
And if you look at it over the years, there's been just different disruptions. I think film and television and media has been one of the most susceptible industries to dramatic technological change.
Yeah.
So if you look at, there was a time when film, when they introduced sound, and half the industry quit.
Oh yes, yes. Where we were coming from the silent films,
from silent films to sound, and then when they introduced color, it's like watu wameachana nayo kabisa.
Yes.
And then the internet has come now, and I think the biggest challenge that we're facing right now is the internet. It's individual creators. It's just that because we're in the eyeball economy. We sell eyeballs.
Absolutely.
But eyeballs now are so divided in the options that they have. You're competing with TikTok. You're competing with Instagram. You're competing with Google. You're just even games that people are playing on their phones. So eyeballs now are just so scattered. And of course, you've got the big boogeyman who is AI that's coming. So I also don't really know what the future really is. But I think as is with anything, you adapt, you remain agile, you learn quick. But what I know for a fact is there'll always be room for storytellers. Life is defined by stories. Storytellers write history. They define philosophy. They define the journey that the humanity will take. They help you reflect. So there'll always be a place for storytellers. It's just a medium that we now have to crack.
Absolutely. Oh man, amazing. So basically, you're telling me all these investments I've made, all this this entire crew, we're headed towards the what did you call them?
It's individual
content.
creators economy. And if you look at it, it's I was talking to someone and I was saying to them, I think content creation has been democratized. And when we entered the market, you and I actually, you used to have to go and pitch a show to a commissioning editor in a channel, and they would look at it and decide, even without consulting anybody, that it's not worth the salt and it will never see the time of day. And this true dramatic change happened when people started self-publishing, which came about because of social media. Case in point now, there's no commissioning editor you've had to pitch this to.
Nope.
You've done it. You post it on your page at your own time. Your people watch it at their own time. So once that gatekeeping was sort of like broken and self-publishing began, the age of the individual creator started. And that's what we are seeing peak now. I think maybe the biggest media house right now in the world is Mr. Beast, or some of those YouTuber guys.
For sure.
And it's an individual guy with their own ideas. And now you have a new model that's taking very, very big shape in the West, which is the streamers, with Twitch and and Kai Senat and these guys.
I Show Speed.
I Show Speed. So it's the age of the individual creator. But I still think there's going to be, at least my analysis, there's going to be two kinds of content that will coexist with each other. There's going to be the quick, fast shot, streaming kind of stuff that we are seeing with the individual creators, and people will no longer want to pay for that again. So that's it's on free on the internet. Maybe it's advertiser driven, but then there's always going to be room for well produced, higher level content that's a bit well thought out that you're willing to pay a subscription fee for. And there you have your big franchises, you have your nice reality TV shows, you have your nice movies. People will still want to go and see theater. They'll still want to watch a nice, well-produced film on Sunday with their girlfriend or out on a date. But the fast stuff is going to have to coexist with it. And I guess what we are facing now is, because we are from the old, these guys are nudging us and say, we're also here. You have to coexist. So then it's now differentiating that where you sit.
Absolutely, man. Wow. I mean, let me take you back to, just for context, your earliest years. And did you always know that you're going to end up in the TV space? Now, for me, for those who don't know, yes, Eugene is a prolific TV producer. If you've watched any proper reality show in this country, he probably has something to do with it. But I also know him as a serial entrepreneur. Like, you have so many investments. So did you always know you'd end up on TV, or TV is just one of your many businesses?
So I actually did not. So I grew up a bit disadvantaged, and the way my life panned out was I just took all the opportunities I got because there aren't many. So how I got into TV was also just by chance. I lived with two cousins. One of them was an accountant. The other one was a soundman on he mixed sound on several film sets. John Kamicha.
Allah.
Nice.
And so, okay, now I see the resemblance.
So Kamicha used to work on all these film sets. And so when I finished high school, I was about 17. He took me on a film set. And it was Inspector Mola at the time. So I was even an actor there. I used to play a truant high school kid. Unataka kunimaliza
tusikumalize
kisiasa. So I ended up on it accidentally, but then spending time on set with these guys, just seeing how stuff is created from a script to I actually started to write for Inspector Mola very early on in those days.
Oh wow.
I used to do like very simple scripts, and they would adopt some of them, and then that's how I ended up acting in some. And as I did that, started to get interest in sound. So I was a boom swinger. On
swing boom.
Swing boom.
Wow. On a film set, one of the hardest jobs you could ever be is a boom swinger. Just holding the mic like this.
And you'll think it gives you muscles. It doesn't. It's just... So I was a boom singer on Machachari. I was a boom singer on some shows that were on KBC by Benjamin Odiwuor. Then I graduated to be an extra. Nikapata promotion.
Eh,
So I was an extra on Makutano Junction.
oh wow.
Yeah,
No,
yeah.
no. Extra Makutano Junction ulikuwa unalipwa kama main cast kwingine bro.
Ulikuwa lipo?
Ulikuwa unalipwa kama main cast in some shows. Yeah,
No,
Makutano
but really,
Junction had budgets.
no, but sikuwa wajua kulikuwa na ile extra na lines na wangu ilikuwa ile literally kufeel background. So ulikuwa unalipwa so sita per day and wana shoot uko Karenend.
Yo.
So na mimi naishi Roisa. So ni transport tu. Ukisha
Wewe ulikuwa unaenda experience.
the experience.
Yo.
So I did that as well. Then I started to teach basic film in primary schools. So then I taught at Makini School, I taught at St. Austin's. And then eventually, but this whole time I really, really wanted to own my own TV show. And the idea came from when I was on the set of Makutano Junction. There's a guy who drove in, this Mzungu, with a Harley Davidson. I was like, who is that guy?
Yeah.
Nikamwambia huyu ndio executive producer. Like, what does the executive producer do? Unajua sasa ni hapo ni extra, kwanza unafukuza wacha maswali mingi.
Yeah.
Una disrupt kazi. And I was told that's a guy who owns the show. And so that's what I wanted to be. And so I started to write a bunch of TV shows and started pitching them around.
Yeah.
I pitched them in a lot of places. Nilienda huko TV, nikajaribu kupitch Standard Group.
Wow.
Wanakataa hiyo nakuja na ingine.
Right.
Emails too, I was respondivi.
Yeah.
And then so eventually I got my first TV show in 2013, which was Young Rich.
Right.
I was 21, turning 22 then. And even then it was just, it was as a result of luck. If you remember, that was around the election time when there was some heavy investment that came into MediaMax. And they poached a bunch of guys and they had to put shows quickly together.
Yeah.
And because I had knocked on so many doors when those guys were trying to find, a lot of them had heard of this little show of mine. And so that's how I got Young Rich on Nini. So I didn't really know I wanted to get into media. It was life ndio ilinisukuma pande hiyo. Then once I did the first one, it almost took a life of its own. It's like, this is decent work. I like it. And you see, by the time I did that first TV show, I had already been in the industry almost 5 years.
Oh, wow. Yes.
Because I was doing all those odd jobs. I was writing film reviews for The Nation. And at the same time, I had also decided to go into university and study TV production at USIU.
Okay.
Which was more on the journalism side. But then while I was there, my classmates will tell you, I mean, nilikuwa nimedivert your course into my own thing. So
Okay.
I was in journalism classes, but wakipeana practicals mi nafanya documentaries. And the lecturers sort of didn't mind it because it was extra effort.
Yeah.
I was using the equipment to do a bunch of pilots. I had an event recently with the VC of USIU, and she jokingly said that I have to pay them the money back.
Hey, man.
So I diverted what was a journalism course
Right.
into a filmmaking course.
Yeah.
Using the equipment that was there. Yeah. So by the time I got my first show, I had almost been in the industry for 5 years.
Right.
So now if you look at how long my company has been in existence, cumulatively I've been in the industry almost 15 years.
15 years, man. Wow.
Yeah, it's been a long
That's
time.
amazing.
Yeah.
So, Young Rich, what's your next show?
So after we did Young Rich, I sort of went crazy on it because one of the things I found that, and it's true today, what keeps you going, what's going to keep your company alive or any business is innovation.
Right.
So after Young Rich, I did a show called Get in the Kitchen with Monique Magaria. Then we did, Get in the Kitchen, we used to poke fun at Patrick. African men don't like to get in the kitchen, so their wives' girlfriends challenge them. You guys are on that show.
Yes. I remember.
I remember those clips. You guys are looking very young.
Abel and Jugush, I remember. Yes, I remember.
So that was a fun show to do. Then we did Foods of Kenya. We went around the country documenting traditional food.
That was a very good show.
Yeah.
I'm curious about the attraction on that show. I used to watch it. I'm like, oh my God, I didn't know Kenya has this many cuisines.
So on KTN, that was, in terms of work we are proud of, that probably sits very high up there.
Yeah.
And Monique Magaria, the host, every time you're out with him in public to this day, you have very regular people walking up to him saying like, yo, you went to my village.
Wow.
So it makes people feel seen.
That was a beautiful concept.
Yeah. And it ran for almost 100 episodes on KTN.
Wow.
It's one of the work that we're very proud of because one of the biggest challenges we have as a society is our history was passed orally. While more other, I was going to say more developed, but that's not correct. Other societies wrote books.
Right.
We passed ours orally, but there's been a break in the link. since we have technology in our generation, we should be recording that oral history from
Yeah.
our grandparents, from our parents, so that it's stored now.
I agree.
And so Food Kenya did this because we were speaking to elders and holders of that information about just our culinary sophistication as a people.
Yeah.
And we learned some interesting things. When it comes to preservation, Africans had their own methods. When it comes to healing substances of plants, Africans had their own methods. If you look at a lot of those guys were giving us solutions to hunger in the country because there's grains that are drought resistant that these guys know about. So it's just, there was so much information there that is not being documented. So we probably have the largest catalog of audiovisual information about Kenyan food. So that's some work we were really proud of. Then we did our perfect wedding, which we're still doing now. I think it's season 17. Then we had a spin-off of that called our 5th anniversary because some of the couples we profiled initially are now in their 5th, 6th year.
Wow.
We did a show called Best of on NTV. Then we went into the celebrity reality realm.
Yeah.
So we did Big Bahati, which was the first celebrity reality show on TV. We did Soul Family with Sauti Soul.
Yeah.
Kialo Culture with Betshalo and the Sisters. We've done This Love with Wahoo and Nameless. And the big one now, Real Houses of Nairobi.
That's the biggest.
Yeah,
biggest,
yeah.
man.
It's a humongous project. Big format by NBC Universal.
Yeah.
Probably the biggest in terms of streaming numbers to come from Kenya and the region.
For sure.
It's traveled very well. It was top 5 both seasons. Season 1 and season 2 have been top 5 in Kenya, Uganda. You always go quickly to the East African countries.
Yes.
Kenya, Nigeria, Ghana, South Africa. It's now exporting to Australia. It's going to air in the States. So that was a big one. We also do quite a bit of stand-up comedy shows. So we did a roast comedy show called Roast House. We've done another one called Comedy Riot. We're filming a new one now called Hot Seat.
Nice.
So I think we're on episode 3 where it's filming every second Tuesday at Alloy. So delve deep into that.
Yeah.
We've gone into digital content as well. We have a channel called Control Z, which is Gen Z content.
Mnaongeanga we sips water.
Yeah, we put a group of young guys in a room and allow them to sort of tell stories the way they do.
Yeah.
It tackles matter of sexuality, entrepreneurship. It tackles civil education.
Right.
They have a thing there called Gen Z News, which is a take on news and current affairs. And so that's our foray into digital content.
Right.
So that's been what our work has looked like.
So, ladies and gentlemen, CEOs, do you see why I feel like an underachiever? Have you? Oh my goodness! Have you? Mmekuwa mkihesabu? The number of shows is just said, oh, I don't even think my catalog is half of that, man. And that's just amazing. And on top of that, now you also do other businesses. I know you're very well known for Number 7.
Yeah.
Kama unapitianga tao, maskan fulani inaitwa Number 7. Eugene owns Number 7. And how did you find yourself in that business?
So Number 7 came about very interestingly. It was just myself and a group of friends who, used to drink together and go out together. Yeah. And, I'm a very curious person. So I'm always like, how does this work? Who makes what? Where did you get the booze and so on? Yeah. So it was just a project by a group of friends to say, look, we really enjoy hanging out. Why don't we put some money together and put together a joint? And we put it together, and now the joint is 7 years old.
Number 7 is 7 years old.
Number 7 is 7 years old.
I love it. I love it, man.
It's become an interesting mainstay of town.
Yes, it has.
So it's become one of those like little iconic joints that if you hang out in town, you know about. Yes. Because of its proximity to Nairobi University, a lot of the offices around there. So it's been an interesting project.
I've been talking to a couple of young people. So Number 7, by the time you started Number 7, some of us got tushatoka age ya kuhang out.
Yeah, tao.
So it started off as a joint where they'd hang out when they were in campus. Right now they're already out of campus. They're already working. Yeah. But it's become such a staple for them. They still hang out. Like if they're going on a night out, the first stop is Number 7. Then after that we will decide. Yeah. It's interesting to see a business grow with people's culture and their entire life. Like, and that's the beautiful thing about business sometimes. because I was listening to them, and they can tell you about their first heartbreak. The first time they got their first heartbreak,
Yeah.
they went to number 7. the first,
The
then
first date, probably.
they started talking about number 7, and of course I was very curious because I know you.
Yeah.
And so I listened to them. I was like, number 7 to them is it's family, it's home. And man, that's amazing.
Yeah, it's an interesting culture joint,
Yeah.
and I really hope that it maintains its staying power.
Yeah.
Because you've got a few iconic places in almost every city you go to, and Nairobi has some. You have Mwenda's.
Yes.
You have K1.
K1
You
naweza
have-
taka K1 was a big club when I was still in primary school. To date, it's still
Date bado imeshikilia.
huoni mtu naweza taka kukaa down yani niambie the
Yeah.
magic.
So I really hope that number 7 also
Yes,
continues to have that staying power that it does
Right.
currently. Yeah.
Right. You have an interesting story about number 7. Ilikuchocha. Ukakimbia Westlands.
Yeah. So the club business imenipiga kiboko.
Ilikuita mkutano.
Imeniita mkutano.
We?
So at the time we set up a new joint in Westlands called Number 7 Lion, but this was just a year into the new one.
Right.
So we didn't really know what we were doing. We made a lot of mistakes. So we opened it, but it didn't survive for more than a year, and we lost a lot of money very quickly.
Manze, you told me how much you burnt. It's like, yo. But you had an interesting take, and it's a line I've heard you use several times. Something about trying quick.
There's a right way to fail. It's
Yes.
quickly, cheaply, and never the same way twice. I'm not sure I live by it.
For real?
Yeah,
You're
because,
always preaching it, man.
No, I preach it, but the thing is, generally also for growth,
Yeah.
you never grow unless you put yourself out of your comfort zone.
Right.
And in putting yourself out of your comfort zone, you often lose. So I've come to almost accept failure as a bedfellow. To know that you'll because I think maybe one of the things is when you start out young and you have some successes,
Yeah.
you start to think that's the normalcy of life,
Right.
and the normalcy
for
of life
you-
is actually failure.
For you started with success at
Some
22,
success.
some success.
So you start to think that's what you are
norm.
owed.
Yeah.
That's how life is supposed to be. But now I think I've become a bit more accepting of failure and understanding that for you to unlock any new level, those failures have to happen.
That's true.
So you of course be cautious, but you really have to just make peace with failing,
Right.
to be able to just grow and develop a thicker skin and achieve new things.
Right. Just listening to you and how you started off in the film industry, the 5 years that you were doing odd jobs here
Yeah.
and there, and then quickly jumped into production, and how quickly you've scaled up. Because I could be wrong, but I think you're probably the only production company in this country that even has a board of governors, which is just mind-boggling to me. Like, for you to think on that level, how have you learned so fast?
Yeah, I think most of my learnings have most been by doing.
Okay.
I think I dive into the water and learn how to swim later, which is not necessarily the best way to go about to go about
Saa
anything.
zingine unaweza drown,
Unaweza
like-
drown. But I've just always been very, very big on doing. If I have an idea today, I try and ensure that in as quick a time as possible, I've turned it around into reality. So you move fast, break things, and see what sticks. So we've been able to do a lot in that period. But as you grow older, also now it's time to just almost like change tact.
Right.
So where you have a board of directors, for instance, is to get some guidance. But I think that the biggest thing for me is just I'm big on doing. I like to if I think of an idea, I want to execute it as quickly as I can. Right. Of course, that comes with its fair share of failure, but it's also how you build a big enough catalog of what we've just spoken about. It's how you scale. But then also at the same time, I think as I'm growing older, I'm starting to become more risk averse.
Really?
Yeah.
That's a very different Eugene. I was so used to the trailblazing Eugene.
Because I think now as you have more responsibilities, and so you start to now think about sustainability. You start to now think about doing fewer things better. And so that's almost like the journey I am at right now. I think also because of what our industry is, it sort of slows you down. At this point, we're just discussing what is happening, external factors beyond your control with our industry, the changes.
Right.
So it's now almost like trying to find your place again, trying to figure out what that new frontier is like. And I guess also the energy isn't as
As it used to be.
as much as it used to be.
As it used to be.
Yeah.
For me, it's the amount of business knowledge that you have, and it just almost feels like you read a lot.
Yeah.
I think. And that's a culture you told me you never used to have. It's something you've had to build.
Yeah.
So that you learn the business. How important is it to invest in ourselves, knowledge?
I think knowledge acquisition is everything. It's what separates winners and losers. It's what separates good decisions and bad. I try to set aside 1 or 2 hours every single day for reading, and sometimes it's books. A lot of times it's articles. You're listening to podcasts, watching documentaries, because that's also a form of just quick knowledge acquisition.
Right.
And it's a big differentiator. You're more likely to succeed in whatever it is you're doing if you're more informed about what is happening in your industry, if you're a bit more informed about what is happening in the world. Also, if you know, storytelling requires a lot of curiosity. You need to be curious about how people think, the psychology of audiences. And so reading and knowledge acquisition is still a very, very big part of how I operate. And I would say it's a big contributor to anything I have achieved so far.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Right. Love it, man. I mean, I'm always, watching you from a step behind. I'm like, the moves. How did he know how to do that? How did he think of that? And man, thank you. Well, from where I see it, thank you for trailblazing, man. That's
Asante.
Yeah, for sure. So okay, so you've tried the club business. You're doing TV shows.
Yes.
What other businesses are you into?
So before COVID, I was in farming as well, and some degree of real estate. And that was, I had a farm with some of my friends, and we were doing what you call a feedlot, which is value addition for beef.
Okay.
But I'm no longer in that anymore.
Right.
Actually, now I'm finding that I'm going to be narrowing what I do more and more, with a focus on just storytelling and film and television.
That's interesting.
Yeah. And it's just because focus too, as you get older, I think you start to understand that mastery is extremely important.
Yeah.
And then also in terms of just getting to a point where it's very easy when you're building businesses and stuff you get in because you wanted to create art, but you find yourself that your work has become to chase money.
That is true.
And I want to undo that. So I don't.
Eugene, bana, si tutoke bana. Me, if I knew there was someone who was going to figure out the money in content, yeah.
No, but we're not eliminating the money element. But you're saying is if you master what you're doing, money usually follows.
That's true.
But sometimes it's very easy to get caught up in the commercial pursuit, where you're almost trying to justify some earnings and then back it up with art, as opposed to make amazing, really good art. And by art, by making good art, I don't mean that you go become a pure artist. I still intend to try and crack the financial bits of it. You and I are working on something jointly with a few other Kenyan filmmakers.
Yes.
It's to try and crack the financial element from a mastery perspective, not so much from a mass perspective. And so I've spent the last few years trying to build structures, trying to build an organization that sort of fits that, and that will remain. But I want that organization to now be focused on the value of the art.
Right.
And I believe the financial element will follow, so that our work is not to chase money.
I love it. And I think the very first time we met, I think what I immediately loved about you was how candid and open you are with information.
Yes.
And we come from a society that never shares it. From kwanza ikifika biashara and
Maneno ya
numbers,
pesa.
mambo ya pesa we don't share. And for you were very candid and very forthright with me, and that amazed me. And I had a question. Imepotea. Where was I going with this? Oh my God. I had a question.
Itakuja tu.
Itarudi tu.
Itarudi.
Okay. Mbona imenipotelea. I was going somewhere with it.
It is about sharing figures and
Yes, there's somewhere I was headed. Oh yeah. You sharing figures and you're very forthright, and this is the image and persona that you've taken even on social media, and that has made you've gotten yourself quite following, and if you're one of the most requested people on our channel, on our platform.
I'm happy to
because
hear
we
that.
always tell them, request for the guest you'd like to hear from, and you've amassed quite a following, and it's because of you sharing your business acumen every single day, and now slowly you're becoming an influencer.
Yes. It's the age of the individual creator, remember?
Individual creator. And I think I've just watched one of the most beautiful ads this year,
which is Perfect Pineapple.
Yes, the Perfect Pineapple by Don Julio with Don.
Yes, with Don Julio. Yes.
Oh my God, I loved it. It had all the signatures of Wes Anderson, who is another favorite of mine. First of all, how is this intentional, or is this now just finding you? Because now you're becoming influential now.
Yeah, I think I started to take social media seriously around the pandemic time. I had maybe 5,000 followers then, just from the different TV shows. But then also just understanding that element of the creator economy, and the fact that your digital presence now is getting to a place where that's your resume. That's the profile of who you are as a person. That's the profile of who you are intellectually. That's the profile of who you are career-wise. So I started to share, and it was at the urging of Bien, who urged me, like you already live an interesting life here. Why don't you document this and sort of share your process with people? And so I started to, it's my daily workouts, which I began, I think, around 2019. It's what I'm reading. It's where I've been, what I've been, who I've met, what I've been doing. And then, I share failures, I share successes, I share some projects I'm doing. And more importantly, I do the fitness thing almost daily. I share my golf swing, so you guys can see from when it was terrible to as it's getting better. And so it's interesting.
This is Friday mornings.
Friday mornings.
Like I even know your routine. Yeah.
So it's interesting. So people will support you if they know your process, and I think you guys know this quite well.
Yeah.
Human beings generally respect when they see people putting in the work. And I'm a big believer in, sometimes the output might fail you. You don't really have much control over the output. But so long as you have all the control over the input. And so I try to share my input process, how I'm working, who I'm meeting, the end. And I found that has gotten me quite an interesting following. Which then, of course, has become big enough to commercialize. I think unless you're a very wealthy person who has a following nonetheless, almost everybody else now, if you've got a following, advertising is now moving to the individual pages, because it's very, very niche. You're very targeted, because if a brand aligns with exactly who follows you for whatever reason, everybody should try and get to this level. The age of the individual creator is upon us.
Oh man, we're learning, man. We're learning. That's wow. That's the other thing. I usually, like, if I'm looking for someone, or if I'm looking for a connect, I'll just call Eugene. Like, even if Eugene does not know the person, he knows someone who knows the person. And that's something else you're very good with. You're a connector. You're an enabler. Like, you seem to know everyone. I think the other day I was on socials and I was like, wait, Eugene is introducing Davido to Sauti Sol. Wait, what? Nini happen hapa hivi? Like
I wish that was the case, but hopefully getting there.
We're getting there. Okay, no, it was you taking Davido to where Sauti Sol was. That's how I saw it. Next time I'm seeing you with the lead actor from Scandal. What's his name?
Tony Goldwyn.
Yes, Tony Goldwyn.
So we actually...
that was an interesting
Tony is an interesting connection to have. I know Tony through Kennedy Odede.
Right.
who's the CEO of Shofco.
Yeah.
And Shofco is one of the biggest movements that we have in this region.
Again, you see, he knows.
And so I sit on the board of Shofco.
Oh, wow.
With my friend Kennedy Odede, and Tony has bought the rights to Kennedy and Jessica Odede's book.
Wow.
So he's going to make that into a movie.
Wow.
So we actually hosted Tony here all the way back in 2018 or 19.
Wow.
As part of this work, and so it was really good to see him again in Jamaica earlier in the year and spend time with him, because he's Goldwyn. The name Goldwyn is when you read Metro Goldwyn and Maya, this is like Hollywood royalty.
Yes.
And so to sort of meet like people like this and understand the history of how Hollywood came about, and the risk takers that were their grandfathers, which is us now.
Yeah.
In our Wild West.
This is our Wild West.
This is our Wild West, and we are that first generation. So but in terms of networking and just knowing people, I'm very, very intentional about just making new connections. I spend a lot of time speaking with people, hosting parties and attending them.
Right.
But above all, I find that what you call the connector, there's a lot of value when you're even putting together a group. The trick that I always use is, if I'm calling you, I always try to ensure that I have someone else in the room who's of interest to you, so that everybody always leaves your room having found some value.
Right.
When you use that as a formula, always every time you call people, they want to be in that room. And so that's been my simple formula that I've used over the years. And then it's garnered me a very interesting group of people. I'm also very selfish in the shows that I make, because sometimes I make shows purely targeted at networking. That's what Young Rich was. I really wanted to understand who are the young millionaires in Kenya. I want to know them. Right. And so I did a show about it, and a lot of them became my friends.
Yeah.
There's another forum that I use, like when I wanted to get to know you a bit better, I did an interview, and I interviewed you for the paper.
Right.
I was a producer myself, but I wanted to tell your story in the papers and sort of like praise you for the work that you had done with the movies then.
Right.
So you probably didn't know that's what I was doing.
Nope.
But I sat with you for a bunch of hours, asked you a bunch of questions, did a story which was beneficial for you because it was marketing for the movie, but it also allowed us to connect more. And so it's just being very intentional about giving value before you ask for any.
Right. Wow, that's amazing. I find that superpower, because I know personally that's not my superpower. I don't know how to keep connects and keep contact. It's something I'm learning to do, because I've learned with business it's about networks.
Yes, it is.
Yeah,
it is.
Yeah. Wow. Right. So I'm a young entrepreneur starting out, whatever field it is. For you found yourself in TV. I might find myself in any other industry. Give me 3 tips.
If you're starting out, there's one that I always repeat, which is I say, start where you are today with what you have.
Right.
Because if you haven't started, there's nothing really to talk about. So the thing is to start, whether it's to borrow that money and buy that stock, or it's to shoot that first film and self-publish it on YouTube.
Right.
So to start.
Right.
Then another one that I feel a lot of people don't understand, and is something that comes to bite you very early on in entrepreneurship, is that it's one of the most difficult journeys you could ever take, entrepreneurship. It requires a certain strength of spirit that most people do not possess or are not ready for. And it's followed by the third one, which is, and this I was told by the chairman of my board, that you must understand that when you go into business, it's like going into war every day.
Absolutely.
The act of...
Kuna mtu ameifeel, huh?
Because if you really think about it, entrepreneurship is solving problems.
Okay.
So sometimes we get frustrated because why are so many things going wrong? But that's why your business exists, to solve problems in that field.
That's true.
So once you start thinking of it that way, it's not much of a consolation, because the problems are still mega. But it's that understanding that every day it's one issue after another. It's like going into war every day. Wow. And sometimes if you succeed, the rewards are mega. And I guess that's where the risk-taking element comes in, because you could always just go the safer way and become employed. And the interesting thing is, the bigger the ambition, the bigger the dream, the bigger the problems, and the bigger the challenges that you encounter along the way. And that's perhaps it's why it's so important to have mentors. Like when I'm going through crisis at my company, And I speak to some of my mentors and I realize, me, I'm over here
Hata
almost
kuna kitu
losing my life over 10 million. And there's another guy at this very moment, there's 5 billion in a
You know, but
imekwama na they don't have a way out. And
is that something common with all? I've sat down with a couple of billionaires and they've lost billions. And I keep, na mnatembea tu. You guys are still alive. And and you realize, I think that being able to generate billions has made them, I mean, they wanajiamini, like, I can make another B. So what is it losing another billion?
I think it's what we were saying earlier.
Yeah.
There's if you're going to pursue any worthwhile or big enough cause, you have to make failure your bedfellow. You have to understand that there's going to be wins and major losses. And if you don't have the spirit for the losses, then you're unlikely to endure it to the wins.
Absolutely.
And so, again, speaking to other entrepreneurs and guys who are at big levels, and you realize they woke up and you again using the analogy of your 10 million. This guy just lost 3 billion last month.
Yeah.
But they're trying to get to the 10, and that's just the process.
Yeah.
There's a beautiful quote by I think President Roosevelt, "The man in the arena," where it says, "The credit doesn't belong to the critic; it belongs to the man who's in the arena, covered with blood and sweat, who in the high end shall never be amongst those timid souls that neither know failure nor success." So it's entrepreneurship is tough. So those three things I would say to this person: start where you are today with what you have, but also understand those other elements, that it's going to be extremely tasking mentally and even physically, and it's going to consume you, and be ready for war. Yeah.
The thing about war is, every war you go into, you come back with scars.
Yeah.
What scars have been left on you by this entrepreneurship war?
I think I'm still facing the scars.
Okay.
It's every time, I think every year I go not knowing what new challenge I might face. And it's especially true as you start to do bigger things.
Yeah.
It's when you get tested the most.
Right.
It's quite easy to remain in a comfort zone.
Yeah.
To not aspire too much, to sort of stick to the little that you've been able to accumulate.
Right.
But I'm a bit more, I want to see how far I can push things.
Absolutely.
I want to see if I can try my luck on bigger things. And so I feel like I'm facing new scars every year.
Absolutely. It was interesting. We were talking just before we started filming.
Yeah.
I'm out here celebrating you for the Real Housewives of Nairobi, because I mean it's a global franchise. It's the biggest show.
Yes.
And you're just telling me that has been your biggest hit.
Yes,
ever
it's
in your
been
career.
Yes, it's been my biggest hit and also the most challenging show to produce.
Yeah.
I think you're probably seeing us in the papers every day with the legal matters.
Right.
And it's bigger endeavors come with equal measure of challenges.
Right.
They leave you stronger, you know better. But it's almost like there's this weird thing in the world where as soon as you're trying to like rise up beyond where your station is, there's things trying to slap you back down.
Right.
And so you have to almost like fight those slaps to be able to maneuver your way out of it. And I think, again, this is true of probably any undertaking. If I've been speaking to almost all the entrepreneurs, the big ones that even the ones you're interviewing, I'm sure they all have their version of my headache. And then it's about how you persevere and how you find new ways of getting through those difficulties and appearing on the other side smelling like flowers. Bruised.
Smelling
and maybe not even smelling like flowers per se, but on the other side.
On the other side, at least.
Yeah.
They say you're already going through hell. Why will you just stop in hell?
Yeah.
Just go through it.
There's another one that I love is it's if you're swimming in the ocean.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter how deep it is. You just have to keep swimming.
You're not going to stop in the middle of the ocean. You just have to keep swimming.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Why do we do this to ourselves? Why choose entrepreneurship?
I think it's not, to be fair, I don't think it's just entrepreneurship. I think just life is generally difficult.
That is true.
Because if you were to ask anybody who's in employment, they will tell you that they face their own challenges. I think humanity generally, because we are such a strange species, constantly trying to do new things and push boundaries, and I don't think dogs are trying to do that. The dogs seem pretty chill with with what they have.
Ni
So-
kierere yetu tu.
So I think it's a human it's a human challenge, because it doesn't matter who you meet or speak to. It doesn't matter what field they're in. Everybody has their equal share of life challenges,
We're always creating problems. for
and always
ourselves.
creating problems. And I think maybe that's the beauty of humanity, and is to understand when it's your turn.
Yeah.
We were, I was having a very deep discussion with a good friend of mine about, there's a journalist on who was on the internet crying because things had gone really wrong, and we were empathizing, but also saying sometimes when things go wrong to you, it's okay to understand that it's your turn to suffer. Don't break. It's
Kuna mtu anaguzwa leo.
tumeongelesha sana leo.
Kuna mtu umeongelesha sana leo. Unamdunga. Yo.
And it's just that understanding that I think just generally troubles and suffering is a human thing.
Right.
And it happens at different levels. For a lot of us, I think because of our countries, it's financial. But for other people, it's health matters. For other people, it's heartbreak. And I think once you make peace with the fact that there will be good times and bad times, and when the bad times come, don't break. I think that's sort of like a nice balance to sort of understand. So I don't think generally life it gets entirely better. Yeah, there'll be good periods, but there'll also just be very challenging periods.
So we should just
That's the
accept
nature.
and
That's the nature. Skip swimming.
Yeah. I think I saw a clip where I think it was Tom Hanks was saying that the good times will come, they'll go. The hard times will come, they'll go. The good times will come again, they'll go. Like, it's life.
Yeah, it's life.
Yes,
Life, and it moves on.
it's hard to do.
Yeah, don't break.
Don't break. Yo, I'm curious about your mindset. You're one of the few people who I've met who's very rigid with the structure, and they've stuck to it. Like, you're up in the gym by, is it 5 a.m. or 6 a.m. every
5,
day?
yeah.
And the thing is, you document, so we see it, and you go to work, and you're back in bed, I think you told me by 7, 8 p.m.
It used to be 8:30. I've changed it a bit, yeah.
8:30.
I'll tell you more.
Oh, interesting. 8:30.
Yeah.
And then you're very consistent, Monday to Friday work. Weekends, this is not the first time I've tried getting Eugene here. The other times I've been shooting on weekends. Aliniambia categorically, Philip, on weekends sitaki kusikia kazi, sitaki kusikia serious talk, mniwache nipige sherehe na niishi life yangu. And I respect that.
Yeah.
I want to learn that from you. Does that level of discipline, does it come from, is it the goals that you've set for yourself? Is it something you're running from? Is it, how are you that consistent? And this is like the 7th year I've known you.
It's so it began with where initially, when I sort of like found some degree of success with the shows and nini, I didn't really have a structure, which is true to a lot of artists. If there's a shoot day, you'll be up at 5 or 3. If there's no shoot day, there's no like real structure. And so that's how I was. And then I sort of set up the clubs, and I went astray. There was a period there where I was just like living very aimlessly,
Right.
for lack of a better word. And it made me extremely unhappy. I also suffer from very heavy anxiety.
Okay.
And just that uncertainty was killing me. It was just like, it was like a flag to over here. So the routine came about as a way of rescuing myself from that anxiety.
Right.
So I said, okay, look, what am I constantly afraid of? That maybe I'm not doing things right. Maybe I'm not working hard enough. I remember the thing I said earlier about the only thing you can control is your input. Output could vary. You could do all the right things, and the market is not in your favor that year.
That's true.
You could, you've seen now, like sometimes farmers do perfect crop, and then locust invades. So so the only thing you can really control is your input. And so I made a decision that I was going to take charge of my input entirely.
Right.
And that began with just how I treat work and how I treat my time. So it began with a simple notion that almost all of life's troubles happen after 9 p.m.
It's a very good. Yenyewe hakuna kitu mzuri na happen kwa giza.
Vitu maneno ya giza ni mbaya. So the fitness sort of came like, and I knew that I wanted to be in my best shape. I wanted to drink less, feel more energetic. And so I started a morning routine as a way of taming my evenings. So this was around 2018, 2019.
Yeah.
And so I started then with a very punishing routine, which was I'd wake up at 3:45 a.m., work out from 4:45 for an hour with a trainer, then read before my work day begins. And with that routine, I used to be in bed by 8:30. And I did this until last year. So I ran it for 2019, 2020, 21, 22, 23 almost.
Yeah.
But then last year I became very unhappy with the routine as well, because it also became a bit of almost like a prison. And so I eased it up a bit, not too much. So now I'm still up at 4:30. I'm at the gym with a trainer between 5 and 6, 3 to 4 times a week. Then I do golf every Friday at the range, or sometimes I go to the course. And that just keeps my input consistent, because I have all these dreams and ambitions that I want to achieve, and so I like to say Monday to Friday are Caesar's hours, and I give them.
Right.
Then hopefully that buys me Eugene hours on weekends. But even that now is being muddled up a bit, because as you grow older, the sherehe isn't as important and stuff, and the work does seep into it.
Oh, that's true.
I was very stringent with the routine for 5 years, but then it bred unhappiness. So now I've become a bit more loose with it, because what happens is when you're going to bed at 8:30 every evening, people stop inviting you to their birthday parties. You're interrupting dinners because you have to go to bed early. Watu walikuwa wanifukuza, haya wewe si masaa yako imefika, unajua.
That is true.
So it gets in the way of life.
Right.
Dates are disrupted and so on. So what I'm trying to do now is almost like a balance, but I'm still for the most part following the same structure, which is you wake up very early in the morning, as early as you can. You try and get movement out of the way at the beginning, because you can't. You're at your best if you're physically feeling great. It's guaranteed way to live longer.
Yeah.
You have more energy to do more. It clears your mind. So your fitness. So you work out your body, you work out your mind, and then you go and fight that battle that we've picked. Because those are your two real weapons. Your body and your brain.
Absolutely.
So I try to work out both in the morning.
Okay.
Yeah, sharpen.
What's your mantra? What's that mantra you live by?
That's a good one. What's my mantra? There's a funny one.
Love funny one.
Which I've been using a lot of late. You know how you always say, and I think our countries teach us this very much. You know how you always say, so and so mazee amenifanya mbaya, maisha itampata tu. So the mantra now is like, life is not a Nigerian movie. Sometimes bad people just win.
Oh my God! Please don't say it like that. Oh no! Ay.
Like,
please, we can't.
It's
be in a world
it's
where
a
bad
very
people just
skeptical.
win. I know.
But that's more on the humorous side. But it's true.
It's true. But I was
hakuna mali anaenda.
Wapi.
I don't know if you remember when Burna Boy came.
Yeah.
The last time he was in Kenya. And he did a show at Privé in Westlands. Alafu sijui akafanya nini. Wakenya mkamtukana kwa internet. Ati huyu jamani hiyo kiburi. Hakuna mali anaenda. Ati huyu mtu hakuna mali anaenda. Alafu akatuta peasants. It's a very good example of life is not a Nigerian movie.
Yeah. Juu ameenda mahali.
And the truth of the matter is, of course, and I advocate for being good and treating people right and everything.
Right.
But life generally just rewards the doers.
That is true.
Not the good. Yeah. And sometimes we are often too focused on, but me, I'm a good guy. Why aren't good things happening to me? No. Life just rewards the doers. So I think that's an interesting mantra. It's great if you can also be good.
Right.
But above all, I think the action is what is rewarded, not your intentions or.
And that's why a lot of our leaders are not generally good people, but they're there. He's already there. Oh, wow.
Yeah. And actually, if you think about it even from a leadership perspective.
Yeah, it's true.
Our approach of ati huyu Mungu atampunish too isn't the answer. It's for good guys to actually run for office. It's for like the protest you actually. So like only action saves you, not not good intentions or a kind heart.
No.
Action supersedes all this.
Wow. I mean, I love the fact that for every CEO that sits there, they come with their different personality and brand. And for you, you're a doer. you go for it. And I've had CEOs who sit there, and for them it's putting the good out in the world, and for some reason it works for them.
Yeah,
And man, I love it, and I think that's a beautiful place to end it at. Like, life is for the doers.
Life is for the doers, and there's no
CEOs.
formula.
And there's no formula.
Like there's no right or wrong way.
First
Like
of
there are
all-
so many the ways you can achieve it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I was about to end it, but kuna swali nisipouliza, these CEOs come at me. What is your stranger than fiction story? Something that has happened in your life, or a moment that happened in your life. Think about it and you're like, hii story nikipea watu watasema ni story ya jaba, but it's true. It happened.
Hiyo imenipata off guard kidogo.
Kabisa.
Stranger than fiction.
Yeah. Something that went full circle. You never saw it that way. You're like, oh wow.
Actually, I don't know if I have any stranger than fiction story.
So what was the Davido story?
No, so that video story. We were in Botswana for the Forbes convention, the top 30 in the 30. So I've been on the Forbes top 30 in the 30 list twice.
Yeah.
So first time in 2016. Oh my God, I've grown old.
Sasa umetoka kwa ya 30.
I'm
Umeingia kwa
turning
40.
34 in a month. So it's hii iliisha.
Hii iliisha. Sasa tuingie top 40, top 40 under 40.
Nilikuwa hiyo pia. But I was there in my 20s, so hakuna ingine imebakisha sasa mpaka huko 50s. So I was on the list of the top 30 and 30 in Africa, and also globally most promising. Right. And they have these conventions that they do, and so there was one in Botswana, and Sauti Sol happened to be performing there as well. So we traveled together. And one evening, Davido has also been on the top 30 and 30 list, so he was also a speaker. Wow. And we were out. I was with Savara. I think the rest of the guys were sleeping. And so we were hanging out at the club, and Davido called Savara or someone, I think, and he's coming up, and so we end up partying with them that whole evening. So there's no mind-blowing story there.
But at least it was the one day you didn't go to bed at 8:30.
It's the one day I didn't go to bed at 8:30.
Now I see what you've been. Kwa hivyo kuna vitu mzuri usiku.
Ningelala.
Ungelala.
So mwana sambora nimeanza kuwa flexible kidogo. Because you miss moments like that.
Yeah.
But I don't know if I have any stranger than fiction story,
okay.
But my life has been a movie.
Yeah.
I can say. I mean, there's rooms I've been in that I can't even start to describe to you. There's people I've met that are just out of this world. And I think that maybe the biggest one is when you always think you're like a very top dog until you expose yourself to people who are bigger than you. And then it humbles you like you cannot imagine.
Oh, absolutely.
And I'm constantly exposing myself to people who are bigger than me. And so I'll say maybe that's what is, because I'm constantly interacting and meeting people who are extraordinary.
Right.
If it's wealth, if it's knowledge, if it's success. And so in that sense, you might argue that that's almost out of the ordinary. Yeah. But I can't think of a particular
No, it's okay.
individual
That's
story.
great.
Yeah.
What's
And maybe none that I can say in public.
okay. Okay. There's that too.
There's a few that have come in mind that I can't share publicly.
Ndio maana ulianza kulala 8:30. Your top 3 books any day you'd recommend to someone.
There's one called The Messy Middle. Oh, I forget who the author is. And I think it's very true to a lot of entrepreneurs. So The Messy Middle, the premise is basically you always know, people will tell you the story of how they began and this glory days.
Aha.
But hii hapa katikati, that messy middle. And it's Bello, I forget the name of the author, but it's called The Messy Middle. And it's a book about almost all the great ventures in the world and the messy middle that nobody tells you about. It's when you're about to go bankrupt, or when you go bankrupt and you're saved by some luck. It's when great seeming organizations needed to pivot dramatically from what they were doing to achieve success. It's failures of structure. It's when calamity or misfortune happens to you, that messy, people don't really dwell on that because by the time you're going to IPO and it's become a 10 billion business, you've mostly even forgotten.
Yeah.
So it's called The Messy Middle.
That's a beautiful.
It's a beautiful, beautiful book.
Right.
There's one I've just begun now. It's called The Artist's Way. That was given by my friend Denise. So that I'm enjoying quite a bit because, as I mentioned, I'm trying to go back to mastering of my craft,
Right.
by being more of an artist,
Yeah.
as opposed to a money chaser.
Right.
So that's also a good one.
Denise, that's another powerhouse.
Yes, Denise Mende.
Yeah.
God bless her soul.
Yeah.
And then there's what other book can I recommend? There's a book by a British billionaire called How to Get Rich. It's very obnoxious.
How to get rich.
Felix Dennis.
Uh-huh.
He was this very eccentric British publisher back in the day when magazines were a big deal. Felix Dennis. And I like that book because of just how shameless it is.
Okay. I need
So
to
I'll urge anybody to also read that,
Yeah.
because he made like billions from his magazine business, and then went into a life of debauchery, and he just has like these very strict rules, very straight shooting instructions about, if you really want to make money, this is what you need to do. You need to be able to have a spirit of screwing people. You need to be able to do this, do this. It's I don't agree with most of the ideas in the book,
Right.
but it's a very bold take at life and wealth building. So I'll recommend that, Felix Dennis, how to get rich. And I warn you again, it's a very obnoxious book.
You have been warned.
So yeah, the messy middle, the artist way, and how to get rich.
Eugene, thank you so much for your time and for honoring our invite. I think you've dropped some amazing jewels, and our classmates and CEOs here listening in will agree with me. So if they do call on you again, please usichoke. Kuja, man.
Every
There's
time.
so much to learn from you. Again, thank you so much. Classmates, I hope you've enjoyed the episode and our lecture for the day. As we keep saying, this is a concert for businessmen. Today our performer just was top dog, top performer, and I loved it. Just a big thank you to the team that makes this possible. I have this huge team that hata siwalipangi, mi sijui hata wanakujanga hapa kwa nini, but they somehow believe in my crazy dream, and I want to thank them. On camera, and our director of photography is a gentleman called 44. On camera again we have Ous, tunamwitanga hivyo, and then we have Spikes, who is in absentia today. On sound we have Michi, yes, Michi Retu, the one and only from the Real Households of Kawangware. And the lady who's always making sure I look good, that's Mercy. She's our stylist. And then we have Katule, who does the beautiful lighting that you guys keep talking about. Thank you so much. We have editor tuko na Species. Leo by the way, mbona mko area leo? Kwani mlisikia kuna chakula tamu huku leo? Species. And then we have our producer and my manager, she's called Mokami. So if you ever want to get in touch for business, she's the person you'll talk to. And then I also have a lady who joined us recently, she's called Tora. She's in charge of business development. Tunajaribu kufanya kitu kaa biz, so we have to make it work. Richie, who's in charge of transport. Nani mwingine nasahau? Isaiah, who does our catering. Nasahau nani mwingine? Naona Sledge amekuja kututembelea leo. We'll big up Sledge. Sledge has been our consulting editor for the longest time. Anyone else I'm forgetting? Myself as the host. So I thank myself. Thank you so much. Thank you, Eugene.
Asante. Thank you.